Okay, thank you for the invitation. I'm from the Center for E-Government Studies. We are researching the present development of e-government in Europe and in national states, mainly from the perspective of users. We are specialists in users, so we always approach the things from the social side and not from the technical side. Today I have a presentation about the task division in Europe. At what level can things best be done? At the national level, at the European level, or at the local government level? That is disputed in the European member states. Some are more decentralized, have a local focus, and others have a more centralized idea about development of, for instance, the digital agenda. What's best? I made a portrayal of it in terms of a house, the house of e-government. This house has a foundation, of course, with infrastructures and all kinds of architectures. It has doors of access to people, that's social, but also technical. We need IDs and the like, and we need security. We have windows. The windows to e-government are, of course, our sites and the like, and they should be accessible and usable for people. We have all kinds of offices to organize things, back offices, mid offices, and of course front offices, the door to the people, to the citizens and the companies. We have house connections. That means all kinds of service channels, and the question is whether everything will go immediately in the direction of digital channels, or still that we keep all kinds of face-to-face service desks and telephony. That's one question. Finally, we have, of course, that's the game of it all, services. And I observe as a scientist that they go from simple and one-way services to complex services, two-way services, integrated services. And in this way, we go as a government from administration increasingly to communication, as the latest stage, of course, is the emphasis on social media, for instance. This is an important shift that is no longer far away for citizens and companies, the government, but they are able to communicate with them using the digital media. Let's start with the infrastructure. Local government can't work without national basic registrations, like for instance of people, and they need the standards and the architecture at a grander scale. We also need standards. Without standards, we cannot provide services sufficiently. Even in my country, the Netherlands, we still have a dispute about the standard of income. It's now decided that it should be with the tax office, but if we don't have such standards of what is income, we can't provide services sufficiently. But for instance, in my country, for housing, some people are supposed to pay more than others, higher and lower incomes, and that means, of course, that you need to register what's the income of a particular citizen. If we look at the infrastructure, there is a discussion always whether local governments should invest themselves in infrastructures, for instance in broadband. That's something to which they are often tempted to do this. I think this is not desirable. I think that local governments and local places should concentrate on investment in services. That's what they are good in, and that for the larger scale infrastructures, the focus should be on national and preferably European infrastructures. If we go to the doors of e-government, access, e-skills, IDs and the like, it has a technical aspect. IDs, security, big problem at this moment, and it has a social aspect, access and skills. The final thing is my specialty. My forthcoming book will be about digital skills, the key to the information society. Access to e-government services shows a digital divide in Europe. My neighbor already referred to it. The difference between Bulgaria and my country is rather large, but this also goes for individuals. A rough estimation says that about 1/3 of the EU population does not have access to e-government services. What's worse, about half of capacity is actually used of all these splendid services we develop. The government, both national and European, has a big supply-side technological orientation, while the big problems at this moment, according to our research, are usage and skills, that the opportunities which are already there are not sufficiently benefited from by citizens. There are simply a lot of bottlenecks, those of skills and those of the accessibility of services. This is a problem both at the national and local scale. However, the local scale is by far the best place to solve these problems because this is close to people. If there is any future for Europe, it should be close to the people, and that means that the Committee of the Regions, local and smart governments, places are the locus where things are going to happen. In many European countries these days we see the focus of decentralization of services. That's a good thing because at the local sphere we can integrate all kinds of problems. For instance, young people have at this moment with finding a job, going to school and having all kinds of benefits they need. The best place for these problems is the local place. But they can benefit from national data services. Looking at the technical things, ideas and their security should be, in my view, provided nationally, perhaps under the EU flag, because we need high standards of protection and for storage. And this is a big priority. There are a lot of problems with this these days. The papers are full with it, all kinds of scandals of things which have been opened up, public information that's gotten on the street, not only stolen by the Americans, but simply by our own governments left on the street. And that shouldn't happen, of course. However, locally, we have the biggest problems with security, because there's evidently the human factor. Most often, privacy and security issues are mistakes made by people at a local level which are less professional in dealing with personal data of citizens and of companies. And that should be improved. And that's, I think, a second priority, that at the local level, civil servants should be trained in security and privacy issues much better than up to now. I'm going to the windows, where we have website accessibility and usability, which are necessary. Here, local digital and front office desks are becoming the face of government. Many improvements are necessary. We need full digital services, but not only them, we still need the old services of service desks and telephony. It will be for a very long time to come that we need these old service channels also at the local government. That means a strategy for multi-channeling. Not everything will be digital, not even in the foreseeable future, I can say you as a communication scientist. We won't have to close the service desk at municipal halls. This is against all kinds of fantasies who say that we can even print passports and deliver them like it's e-commerce at your doorstep. This is not going to happen in the near future, in my view. Another issue that comes forward from research is that many people don't understand the government language. Both nationally and locally is incomprehensible. We've done a research in my country that about 40% of government text is incomprehensible. The words of it is incomprehensible to people. Does the digitization improve this situation? Unfortunately not. It brings only an extra handicap to it, an extra difficulty, that is the findability of the information, the biggest problem in this regard for European citizens. National portals are able to link services, but until now they haven't worked very well. National portals made citizens lose their track, and immediately, even in several countries of Europe, you can see that they prefer to go to Google or another search system instead of using these splendid portals. Developing the my ... services, that means personalization, works much better, but that requires that we have a high level of automation in which we can make a perfect coupling of all kinds of personal data coming together in my personal site of a government site, and that's not easy. Most member states are not yet at that stage that they are able to do it. Anyway, personal problem situations of citizens can best be solved and supported, I guess, at the local level. This is the importance of the local level, and this is the historic importance that while e-government has started at the national level and has been supported at the European level, it is now going to the local level. And I hope with sufficient financial means, because that's one of the main problems, of course, political problems. This is the place where they can reach citizens, where people have a knowledge of personal situations of clients, of whether citizens or small companies or whatever. I go to the house design, the question whether front offices or back offices should be the focus of attention. Well, front offices, of course, of local and community services will be the locus for all relationships. However, the back office registration behind it does not necessarily have to be at the same place, that local place. That doesn't have to be in the back of the municipal hall office, isn't it? That can be organized at least at a regional level, more professional, perhaps even at a national level, or in the cloud, to make it more professional. But it has to be combined with a front office that is close to the people locally. Decentralization of e-government services to the local municipality levels offers many opportunities to improve the quality of services. What's currently happening, for instance, in my country, this decentralization of services that were once nationally organized, or perhaps regionally, which led to enormous fragmentation of services and all kinds of bodies that couldn't cooperate well. If you shift that to a local level and give it in the hand of community and neighborhood civil servants, which have a dossier of the patient, of the clients that you're supposed to help, then we can make progress. Then we can have the most targeted services for citizens. But that requires that the national and the regional level work together better, because at the local service, the big problem is the professionalism of ICTs among civil servants. That might be better at a bit higher level to organize it. I go to the last part of the house services, which go from simple and one-way to complex and two-way. The evolution of e-government services goes in the direction of integrated services, but it is this evolution which is presently going on. We started with one-way information, simply digitized and put on a site. Then we discovered as governments about 10 to 20 years ago that there should be more citizen and user orientation. Thus we started to ask ourselves, what do citizens think about our splendid services? The next stage, in which most member states are engaged right now, is delivery on user demand. That for the first time the user decides which services are going to be developed and offered, and not the other way around. If we look at all these splendid top 10s and top 100s, about 89% of the criteria is still, do you offer this technology? How advanced is this? There are seldomly questions whether people can use these services and whether they have the skills to use them, for instance. So this is the stage we are presently in, delivery on user demand, and it means that there should be registration, real professional, like any business does with its services, it registers what is used and what is not. That should happen to governments too. That's plain professionalism in the modern age. Then we go to personalization. That's the next step. Some member states are already engaged with that. And finally, we have government-citizen communication. And then we will have another type of e-government services that are not simply administrative tools, but are communicative means. because the new tools of e-services are perfectly equipped to communicate with citizens. And I don't only talk about social media. For instance, if you want to register your waste that you put on the side of the street walk in a digital way, you can also have the input, but they should clear the street anyway for better thing. And there should this and that should be removed. And then we cross, of course, to e-participation in that way. You can look at e-services as a pure business-like thing, so just links that take the boxes you need and that's all, but you can also have a say for citizens using these same services as communicative means for e-participation. That's the last stage of e-services that we are entering now and in the foreseeable years. Talking about a house. Usually a house is built from the bottom up, from the foundation to the roof. However, what we can see as scientific observers is that governments are engaged with all parts of the house simultaneously. We are still working on the infrastructures and the architectures and even on basic registrations and on simple standards, while we're already giving the highest level of services at the same time. So all these parts of the house are worked on simultaneously, and you can imagine that many things go wrong because of bad coordination between all these parts of the house of e-government. There's no clear building plan anyway. That's a big problem for many member states and for many localities as well. Anyway, we hope that this will not result in a house like this. That might be the problem because we have seen many mistakes. It's not only a matter of the business sector that makes all kinds of digital dramas. It's not only the government sector, it's also the business sector that's doing this. But many failures are there, and we should make better plans coordinating the house of e-government. That was my presentation.